And I think it's that sort of level of awareness that increasingly we're all going to need to have about the wider supply chain or network of which we're a part. And I often wonder, when we look within our businesses, who is it who has responsibility for asking these sorts of questions? Because typically if we look at supply chain management, even still today, it's a fairly dispersed sort of responsibility. I'm still responsible for my part of the chain. I'm not responsible for that part. And who is it who has that total sort of big picture, if you want to think of it in those terms? Now, I guess many of you will know and may have even heard me before that agility is something which ultimately I always come back to at the end. Now, it's not the answer to every problem, even though I say here agility holds the key. But I believe it can be exceptionally helpful to us in these uncertain times. Because if you think about what agility is about, it's about being able to bounce back, it's about being able to move quickly, it's about resilience as much as anything else. Organizations that move slowly, by and large, take longer to recover, if indeed they will ever recover from a disruption. So I think we can all sort of see there is some connection between agility and our ability to cope with things when they go wrong. And if we look at the sort of characteristics of agile businesses, it's very interesting. There's an organization, a research company in North America, AMR, and for the last few years now they've been doing an annual survey of the world's best supply chains. Anybody seen that? They published the top 25. AMR, it's worth looking at their website. It's not totally scientific. First of all, it's limited initially to a financial appraisal. So they look at those 25, they look at as many companies as they can. They actually draw them from the Fortune 500 companies. And they're looking at things like, inventory turns. They're looking at cash-to-cash cycle times, those sorts of measures. Oops. Oh, here we are. Right, okay, we're in real time.
It was updated at the...
Yeah, well, that's actually last year's, but it'll do. Because the number one this year is actually Apple, as it happens. But let's leave that up there, because the companies are pretty much the same. Dell, as you might expect, is in there. As I say, they've slipped down to number 3. Number 1, as I say, is Apple. I think number 2 is Nokia, just going from memory. Obviously, you'll find Toyota. Walmart, of course, are in there. Tesco were in then. I think they've slipped down below that 10 because others have moved up in the place. But I think the important point of this, and that Woolworths, by the way, is not the UK Woolworths. It's a totally different business. I mean, I wish it was, but it's not. Now, the interesting thing about these companies, you say, what is it that sort of links them together? Well, quite a few things, but the one thing is that it seems to me that they're all companies who are able to cope with short life cycles. They're good at innovation. They're good at getting product to markets. They can ramp up quickly. They can ramp down quickly. What links are Dell with a P&G? P&G, I think, has got a world-class supply chain. It doesn't surprise me that they're in that list. Toyota, we all know about, of course. Walmart, we all hear such a lot about. Even Anheuser-Busch, since we were talking brewing earlier on, they've moved up to number 10 in this year's list. And if you read, I don't know how familiar you are with the sort of marketing strategy of Anheuser-Busch, but it's been based for years upon freshness, right? And the whole idea of freshness is that this product comes to you, in a very short time after it was actually brewed. In fact, I don't suppose anybody here really has a taste for Budweiser, but if you buy a bottle of Budweiser, on the label there it says born on whatever the date was when it was actually brewed. And in North America particularly, and of course that's where Anheuser-Busch's strength is, it's now also another example of global consolidation, right? They were bought just a month or so back by Ambev to create, the world's biggest brewing business. But the point of the story, and we can sort of switch back to my list, thanks Fabrizio, is that essentially these companies have this one thing in common, basically. They're highly agile. So you say, okay, what sort of denotes an agile business? I think the first thing you can say is they tend to be pretty close to the market. They know what's going on. You know, they read the market almost daily. I think one reason Dell's always been so high on these sorts of lists is if you think about their business model, although interestingly we saw a chart this morning which was highlighting it, which could be Dell's big mistake, right? They're going to change that business model because their current model, which is direct to consumer, means that every hour of the day they're getting immediate feed from the market. You know, what are the trends? What are people actually buying? They see that. They see it in real time. You know, very few of us here in this room see real demand that close. You know, typically we have intermediaries between us and that final marketplace. You know, we've got distributors, we've got retailers, whatever, and the feed we get, you know, through orders is distorted through their ordering policies, through their inventory holding strategies, right? We don't get to see what's happening hour by hour in that real final marketplace.